From the Workers' Credit Union studio, this is the only debate between the candidates for mayor of Leominster, incumbent Mayor Dean Mazzarella and his challenger, Andrea Freeman. We have a lot of ground to cover over the next hour, so let's get to work. And let's start off right by diving into the issue that has been at the center of Leominster's political debate over the past several years, which is school funding. Simply put, does the city fairly and adequately fund the school system? If yes, defend those funding levels. If no, how much should be added and where would the money come from? Mr. Mazzarella.
Well, let me explain. School funding is very complicated. Take a $5 bill, turn it into ones. There are different pots to put it in. Some count to what my opponent says is net school spending, but there are many other ways that it counts. So Leominster, for instance, if you look at our required local contribution, we spend more in percentage-wise than Fitchburg, Lunenburg, Ashburnham, Westminster, Wachusett, Neshoba. But education isn't just how much money you put into education, into the net school spending formula. It also means what you put into your buildings. We built 3 new schools, new library, new parks for our kids, new boiler systems. You got to understand, none of those things count towards what my opponent keeps talking about, the net school spending. It's all related to education. I don't think most people understand that transportation, none of that money in transportation goes towards net school spending. New buildings, roofs, security systems, phone systems, any of those capital improvements, none of that. So if you look at all the gateway cities in the state, we do very well. We had some years we funded almost $3 million over net school spending, $301,000. In fiscal 17, it was almost $2 million, $2 million over net school spending. But it's much more than that. If you take all of the amount, if you take all of the communities, and you look at all the communities who are pure pupil expenditures, all of these people spend less than we do per pupil. So what happens is my opponent looks at communities like Concord, Carlisle, Cambridge, Arlington, people that can spend much more than that, or communities that haven't invested in their buildings, haven't built new buildings, haven't fixed the roofs, haven't fixed those capital things. We have. So it's a $5 bill, you turn it into ones, but not every dollar goes into the same pot. And so in Leominster, we've done after-school programs. We've brought in full-day kindergarten. That's something that people don't know. We've brought in before and after school programs, the Boys and Girls Club, a new library. All of these things count towards education. I think Leominster does very well when you compare us to other gateway communities. You can't necessarily compare us to, as she wants to do, to Concord and Carlisle and Cambridge and all those other communities.
Very good. Ms. Freeman.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks so much for hosting this event. Really important. I want to push back on what my opponent has said. Every school district in the state has to pay for capital investments. They have to repair their school buildings. They need to build new ones. Everybody has to provide transportation. And we need one figure that is comparing apples to apples, and that is net school spending. And when we get to that point, the fact is that we have year after year after year are very, very close to the bare minimum of net school spending. And even if we look at other communities, and I've never said Carlisle or Cambridge or anything like that, if we look at other communities in the state that have the same median income or similar median income as us, I'm talking about Everett, I'm talking about Lynn or Chelsea. These are communities that have about the same level of net school spending. They actually have lower median income than we do, but they have about the same net school spending. Lynn, Chelsea, Fitchburg, Fall River. If you go to communities that actually do have the similar median income as us, we're talking about Palmer and Taunton and Greenfield and Pittsfield. In Pittsfield, really similar size to us, they do 120%, so 20% over the bare minimum that's required. So I just want to point out that the net school spending is in fact an accurate measuring stick when we need to compare ourselves to other districts. A well-educated population benefits all ages, because education is a key indicator of economic prosperity as well as health and well-being. And also we need to point out that, the library and parks, those are all absolutely essential to our community, essential to community development, but that nobody else counts that towards net school spending. And also the Boys and Girls Club, most of that is through private foundation and nonprofit giving. So I just want to point out that net school spending is an important figure.
Net school spending, it's just another, in other words, net school spending only counts for certain things. So if a community doesn't invest, and many of the communities that she just mentioned have not invested in new buildings, other capital items, she said it's required. It is not required that a school build a new building. It is not required that they do things like capital improvements. It is not required that you said that all schools are required to do those things. They are not required to do those things. Leominster does them, and now you may think that $2 million isn't a lot of money, but let me go through some of these. In fiscal 8, in the middle of the recession, City of Leominster spent $2.8 million over net school spending, $1.8 million over net school spending, $2 million in the middle of the recession when people were out of work. Every city and town in Massachusetts, but 3, laid off people during the recession. Leominster gave $2 million in 18, about $1.5 million in 19, $1.5 million in 20, and another 1.6. I don't know where you grew up, but
Tiny
those
percentages of a much larger budget.
Those are not.
They're
These are all communities per pupil expenditures right here. There's 2 pages of people that either spend about the same or a little bit less. Taunton, Clinton, Lynn, Rochester, Belchertown, places, Shrewsbury, for instance, Shrewsbury
Those communities have 39% of their students being economically disadvantaged like we do.
Arlington.
Do they have students,
Oxford.
16% of their students have disabilities, they have special needs?
We fund those things. Absolutely, we fund those things.
Right, and that's where the per pupil number is going to make a difference.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what makes us equal. I'm telling you that net school spending is one category. It does not include every dollar spent on education. Would you admit that?
Net school spending is the same measuring stick that every school district in Massachusetts has
But would
to
you
measure
admit
things
that a community that doesn't spend money on any capital needs, but the only thing they do is spend it on net school spending, puts us at a disadvantage? If you're going to just count that category.
That's not the case.
Well,
Other
tell me a school
communities-
system here that you mentioned, Palmer, any of these others, that built new schools. We built a new school in the middle of the
We haven't done one since in over 15 years.
We built Samoset. We built Skyview. We built $45 million high school improvement renovation.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. Well, yeah, but who else has done that? I'll leave you this. What other community has built schools like we have? I'll sit back and listen.
There are other school districts.
Which ones?
Is Natick, I think, has just opened a new school, but Fitchburg has a brand new, not brand new, but they have a new high school.
New high school was built 20 years, 25 years, 20 years ago. That's what I'm saying.
Ours is 50 years old.
How much
Our
counts
high school
towards,
is 50
tell
years
everyone
old.
tonight,
50
how much counts,
years old, and it's overflowing with people. It's packed.
Do capital items like new schools, roofs, phone systems, security systems, any of those things count towards net school spending? Do they or don't they?
Not all of those things count toward net school spending, but every school district has to do certain things like that, or they would not be able to continue on as a municipality.
Well, then I just said, name somebody else that built 3 schools in the same amount of time that we did, replaced roofs, boiler systems, windows, did all this stuff, security
Then
system,
why,
new phone
sir?
systems. What? So
Why do we have 27 students in a kindergarten class right now?
Well,
that is a huge class.
Well, all I can tell you is
Why?
the superintendent in the budget this year and the school committee said that they weren't going to fund 12 teachers. They could run the system without 12 teachers. Now, the last thing, and you were watching the school committee last time, when the superintendent said, all our classes, did she not say this? All our classes seem to have good numbers. Right? So maybe there are a couple of classes that might be overboard. But you know what? I'm all in favor of funding those. If we need temporary space to rent somewhere, to put those kids in, to break
And
the
then
pattern
why
class,
do we still have
no
students
problem at all.
in temporary spaces? And some of those mobile trailers, those are getting aged out too.
And you brought up a good point. At the last school committee meeting, 2 school committee meetings ago, they were talking about improvements to Fall Brook. And I said, because of my knowledge and experience, because I know these things, I've been around long enough, I said, why aren't we putting in to the school building assistance program?
And so why did we not? Why did it take the Mass Teachers Association to pay for an indoor air quality study to have that brought to the fore?
So I said, why don't we go to the SBA, the school building assistance program, and put in for them? And they all said, sure, we've been approved. We've been approved to do a huge capital project that the city's going to have to pay for. Again, it doesn't go towards net school spending. So it's just a game to play with numbers with net school spending. Let's tell the public, let's be transparent, that's your word. Let's tell the public how much the city of Leominster spends total on education. 70% of all dollars in Leominster go towards education. That's a fact. That's a fact. 68 to 70%, depending on the year, goes towards education.
And
now,
half
not
of it's
every
by
penny
the state, half
goes
of it's
towards
from the
net
state.
school.
A good half is from the state.
Not every penny. That's my money. I paid state taxes for that.
Exactly, but let's just be clear.
Go ahead, finish up.
No, but let's just be clear. But it's not, okay, so it's not just teachers. Why do we not have enough custodians to clean the restrooms? Why do we not have enough pencils? Why do we not have enough supplies? That teachers are telling me day after day that they do not have the supplies they need for their classrooms. So
I don't know if you know this. The school department has $20 million to help kids catch up who have fallen behind. $20 million, and teachers don't have
and
pencils.
This is new.
They don't have pencils
This
in their
is new
classrooms?
this year. This extra $19-20 million you mentioned, this is COVID relief money. What would we be doing if we didn't have that this year?
We took most of our COVID money that we had from last year and gave it to the school department, even though schools weren't in session. Teachers worked really hard.
Teachers worked really hard. Families worked really hard.
If this is an issue, it hasn't been brought forth to the school committee. Okay. So you should have showed up at the school committee and said, I've been talking to teachers all the time. This is a problem. Not wait until the debate and say, hey, guess what? There are all these problems in the schools.
I've been knocking on doors and talking to people one-to-one. I can't control what other people do. I can only control what I hear. And I hear teacher after teacher that there are not enough guidance counselors.
Do you listen to the school committee meetings?
Yes.
Does anybody talk about that at the school committee meetings? Why didn't you show up?
The school,
Why
it's
didn't
not
you
about
show
me
up at the
showing
public forum and say, listen, I've been going door to door, and these are the things that I'm hearing, and share it with the. You have five close friends that are working on your campaign on the school committee. You couldn't tell them, so they could bring it up.
Sir, they passed. The school committee passed a budget.
Yes, they did.
And then the number that you put into the budget was not the budget that they passed, including one that you voted on.
Because they have $20 million. Okay. They have $20 million that they can spend on pencils.
So back to the original question about, is it fairly and adequately funded? It sounded like you are defending that.
Well, we're doing the best we can. You can always give more money to education.
It sounds like you believe that we are not adequately funded. So the question would be, how much more would you like to see funded for the school system, and where does the money come from?
Sure. No, thanks for asking that question, because that's a very important question, right? We don't want to raise property taxes. I've heard that loud and clear from talking to voters. We do not want to have to cut it from another department. We don't want to have to rob Peter to pay Paul. And this is why very early on in my campaign, I made a pledge that my first month in office, I will ask the State Department of Revenue to do a comprehensive financial management review of the city's finances, because we are not doing things as efficiently as we can be, and two, we have way more money. We are overfunded in our pension fund. We are overfunded based on recommendations from the State Department of Revenue. We are overfunded in the stabilization fund. We have almost 13% of our operating budget in the stabilization fund. The Department of Revenue recommends 3 to 5%.
So pension fund and stabilization fund is where you would pull from for school funding? To reprioritize
meeting the needs of the city for city residents, and whether that's for the schools. We also need to be looking at, I heard the fire chief saying that they have to do force overtime because they don't have enough full-time firefighters. So we need to reprioritize where the needs are, and we don't need as much we don't need to be overfunded in the pension fund. We don't need to have 13% of our operating budget in a stabilization fund.
Is there a dollar figure that you would put on adding to school funding over what we're doing now in the city budget?
I would not be able to identify that number until there's the comprehensive financial management review.
Right. Who did you talk to from the Pension Bureau?
It's all available on the Department of Revenue.
Who did you talk to?
I did not talk to an individual. You can find the information. It's freely available online.
Did you talk to John Parsons, the executive director?
No, I have not talked. I couldn't come up with a name.
Did you talk to Larry Stone, our consultant?
No.
All right, because they would have told you that the pension system is fully funded. You've taken a positive thing and turned it into a negative. We are 102% Here's the documents here. We're 102%. There's no $20 million anywhere. You would have called, a person that's running for office would have called, everything I brought here tonight I can validate. I brought backup for everything that I say and everything that I'm about to say and everything I do. I make sure that I look into this thoroughly so that I'm well informed, because that's the function of a mayor. That is the function.
Yes.
So you would know if you took the time to look further, that if you start messing around with the city's stabilization account, that Moody's is watching. Moody's is watching. That means when we go to borrow money and you take money from the stabilization account, right, that is going to affect.
So why does the state...
Another community close by is only getting 52% reimbursement on a school project. We're going to get over 73. You know why? Because we have a high bond rating. You know why? Because we have good fiscal policy.
We have a AA2 bond rating, and it's good. There are plenty of communities that have it. It's not, Scott, it's not top of the moon excellent. It's very good. Yes, I agree with that.
Second highest in the county.
Why does the Department of Revenue then say that 3 to 5% of your operating budget is what they recommend? In fact, some communities have a maximum percentage.
Who did you talk to in the Department of Revenue?
I don't need to talk to anybody in the Department of Revenue.
Sure you do. And
no,
you know what?
The city has publicly available information.
So basically, you're going to go to the computer, Department of Revenue, who can barely, right? Department of Revenue says something, and then you're going to come back, and that's all. You're not going to look any further. You're not going to talk to the people that advise us.
I trust our state Department of Revenue.
How many times have you talked
do.
to the city comptroller, who was the auditor for the city for 10 years? And did you see the latest review by Moody's, where Moody's says this is one thing that can make the bond rating go down. Excuse me. This is what Moody's said. One thing that can make the bond rating go down, if you start playing games and taking money from the stabilization account. You need that money in the stabilization account in case there's a major crisis.
How much do they say we need? What percentage do you want to have? What percentage does Moody's say we have to have?
They are satisfied. They would like
How much do they like?
They would like to see more in our stabilization account.
They want more than 13%.
Because our budget has gone up. When it was $100 million, now it's up to $137 million.
Of $140 million.
If that's the way you're going to operate, we're going to be in trouble real fast, because Moody's going to drop the bond rating. We're going to go to bond for Fallbrook School, and they're going to drop our bond rating, and it's going to cost us more money. Now let's talk about PERACT. In their letter that you're using, that you never called them, and this came from your campaign manager, Peter.
This is available. This is publicly available information.
Okay.
Mass Retirees has published about it.
What it says is that they gave you a couple scenarios, and they said if you reduce your investment rate, okay, what happened is a lot of communities are using 8% on their return. So what they're saying is we're making investments and we're getting 8% back. That's not happening anywhere. 2 years ago in 19, we lost money. So what PERAC is saying, and our financial advisor is, they're saying, hey, listen, this could drop substantially. There is no $20 million.
And it could go up significantly.
And it can.
Yep.
And it could. But when you get those fluctuations, what they're saying, let me just read the last line, because this is what you're counting on. They said, listen, generally, we do not recommend reducing the appropriation to the level of the normal cost when a system remains 100%. Instead, we recommend a more gradual reduction to mitigate potential investment or demographic losses. What they're saying is we're 102%.
Right.
We're fully funded.
And
if you start messing with that, you're going to take money from it. You're not going to fund it.
All right,
we're not going to take money. I do not propose. We cannot take money out of the pension fund. It is in a locked box. That's money correct. That is in there now is protected. And in many situations, that really would be an occasion to really, celebrate and cut a cake and celebrate, except for the fact we have to ask who has suffered along the way when you were racing to a make-believe finish line. It was a make-believe race. Nobody had to be the very first one into the state to have a fully funded pension. Nobody had to be there, because we have to ask ourselves, at what cost did that happen? We had retirees going how many years?
By paying it off.
We had retirees going with no cost of living adjustment for 7 years. Services of the city were suffering.
Which ones?
Sidewalks.
Which ones?
Sidewalks, roads, schools.
We never laid anybody off during the recession. One of the only 3 communities in the entire state for 10 years didn't lay anybody off. Now, what you said is you're going to take money from the pension system.
No. I said we were going to stop putting money in, and I would not have put as much money in as fast as you did just to win a make-believe race.
So you're going to stop funding it at its current rate after the
Correct.
letter. This letter is what you're using. Did you? I just read it to you.
Thank you.
DOR,
Thank you for reading.
PERAC, the retirement system for the state,
Yep.
is saying don't do that. Instead, we recommend a more gradual reduction to mitigate potential investment and losses.
Yes.
What they're saying is stay 100% funded, but don't use a lower investment rate because the stock market could crash and then you're in trouble. And you took money out of there, or you took money out of the funding.
We're not taking money out of it. We're not feeding it in as fast as you have been doing
what
for years.
Institution backs up your state? Who says, do our financial advisors, our comptroller, our city account, our financial team, do they back up what you're saying?
So who's benefiting by us? Tell me all the benefits. Tell me the benefits of being fully and even arguably overfunded,
Yes.
depending. The stock market has done very well recently.
Yeah, and in 19,
correct?
it took a bath. So good question. Let me answer
It did very well the past few years.
Let me answer the question. Who benefits from it? This year alone, the taxpayers saved $6.3 million by paying
How
off
so?
the pension system. Okay?
How so?
So we didn't have to fund the unfunded portion of the pension system.
And so then who suffered?
We took $6.3 million. Where did we put it? 2.5 went to schools. Okay? So
that was needed to make it to net school spending.
So
that 2.5 needed to go.
Instead of putting 2.5 into the pension fund, we took it now, gave it to the schools to put directly into the classrooms.
But they needed that just to get them to the bare minimum.
So you're asking me that. That's $2.5 million extra.
It wasn't extra.
We put money towards paving. We put money towards the unfunded Blue Cross Blue Shield because we're going to have employees retire. We don't have any money to pay their insurance. Okay, that's where the money went. And we paid our current costs. We're 102%. You keep telling people there's $20 million there. I want you. Listen, I'll call you right. You show me there's $20 million somewhere. Okay, and I'm fine. There is no $20 million.
All right, let's give her a chance.
I think we need to agree that the city raced faster than it had to be the first in the state to fully fund its pension. It was possible, but at what cost? Like I said, retirees went over 7 years without a cost of living adjustment. Some people are on very, very limited fixed incomes, and it hurts. And we've been, again, you're going to push back on it again, but we also were not able to get very much beyond the bare minimum for our public schools. Means we were paying off, you ran a race, you won the race, congratulations, but there are people left behind in the process.
No, they're not, because you know why now? Now because we're 100% funded, those retirees will get a raise, an increase, forever, and it will come out of the system.
Some of those retirees are no longer alive, sir.
The reason that communities' bond ratings, the taxpayers are suffering the consequences is because nobody will be honest, okay? If you have a credit card and it's 18%, this is what it's comparable to, and you have a credit card and it's 18%, and all you're doing is paying the interest. That's all you're doing is paying the interest. It's the same thing with paying off the pension, is you still have that balance. What we did is going to save this city long term, because we now can move on from 100% funded pension and start to fund these other things that we couldn't do before.
There's a whole generation of kids. There's a whole
What kids? How did this affect kids?
Let her answer.
In the schools, again, because it's a balancing act. I realize it's a balancing act between saving, between spending.
Right,
and
so
I'm just saying we need to rebalance. We should have, in past years, we should have rebalanced the priorities a little bit.
She's not all or none. She's going to go against all the financial advice of the city people, all the financial advice of the people that we hire to financial. She's going to go against their advice. And let's make this easy. I'm going to fund the pension 100%, so it always stays at 100%. She is not going to do that. She's going to stop funding it at 100%, and then when the city gets in trouble, the bond rating drops. All this
is that an accurate description?
That is, it's a fear tactic. It is definitely a fear tactic, because slowing the pace in which money is going into the pension fund is not putting us at risk. It is not going to lower our bond rating.
It is. That is looked at as a red flag for anybody to say, you're 100% funded.
Okay,
in your pension system.
we need to move on. Next topic.
And now you're not going to do it anymore? You're going to go away from that? That is a red flag for Moody's and everybody else that practices good municipal finance. We can agree to disagree.
Then why don't we open up the city's finances so that we can all see the limitation, see what our budget truly says.
Here you go.
We don't have.
There you are.
Thank you. But does it include actual expenses from previous years? Does it include detailed, all the revenue streams from everything? Because it is not available to the public.
You have to file with the state. You said you get all your stuff from the internet, right? You have to file with the state. You have to file a year-end report electronically, which you say we don't do. But every year we have we have audits, 4 different audits, and then we have to file with the state. And let me just take it a step, anyway, yes, that's...
that said, I just want a comprehensive financial management review so that we can take a look
at the Massachusetts Public Health Association annual, right? You worked there. That was your last job. This was your annual report. This was your budget, right here.
That is not. That is
89% spent on grants and contributions, 6% membership, 3% on events. This was your financial report. It says right here.
Exactly.
That's your financial report.
And you can go to our 990.
That you were the head of.
You can go.
This is mine.
I was not the head of the organization.
This or this?
I was not the head of the organization. You can go to our 990. You go to guidestar.org. You look up our 990 tax filing. You can get every piece of information you want about that organization.
This is what I got when I looked.
This is your
financial report.
And it's the most current one. Yeah, and I would love to see something.
And this is mine. And it breaks everything bound by department, where we spend all our money. And then at the end of the year, we have to file actuals. In other words, what we actually spent. And just so you know, right, you criticize about our finances and our budget and everything is wrong in the city. Do you know that there's an open checkbook, that every single check that's written in the city of Leominster is online?
Where?
Online. All you got to do is go to the website. Go to the treasurer's, click on treasurer, because he writes the checks, and every single one is on an open checkbook. Every check we write. How much is, you use the words transparency. What's more transparent than that?
Well, if somebody has...
I can't go to the Massachusetts Public Health Association and get their checks.
If you go... We are not... I mean, that is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a budget of under $1 million. That is nothing compared...
And you couldn't tell... $137 million is my budget, and I told everybody where every penny went. You guys have a budget of $1 million. This is it.
Yeah.
This is it. And now you want to tell the people of Leominster that our budget process is horrible and you're going to make it a lot better. Well, you should have went to them when you were there in their organization and said, this is embarrassing.
You're comparing completely different institutions, but thank you for sharing and getting the Mass Public Health Association name out there. Thank you.
Next topic. Just this week, the City of Boston placed over 800 public employees on unpaid leave after failing to comply with the city's order to get vaccinated for COVID-19 or provide weekly negative test results. The federal and state governments has also implemented similar policies with public employees. Do you believe that the city has the right to require this of public employees, and would you support such measures as mayor? Ms. Freeman.
This has been a horrific pandemic, and it's not over yet. Municipalities, private businesses, academic institutions have had to make hard decisions about how to help curb the spread of the coronavirus. People are still dying from it. People are still having long-term impacts. Employers, whether they're private, whether they're nonprofit, whether they're municipal, just as we've had vaccines for polio, for mumps, for chickenpox, the vaccine to stop the coronavirus, to slow the pace of this pandemic, it is important. We need as many people as possible to be vaccinated sooner than later. I respect business owners, private and public, I respect them for requiring their employees. It impacts everybody. If we don't have a significant portion, if we don't have at least 80% of city employees mandated, we would have to look into it. We would have to look into why it is any lower than that.
The question, I think, was, would you?
Would you? Yes.
That's what I think the question is.
Yes.
Okay. So most of our employees are vaccinated, and you can still get the virus. all during COVID, the state made us shut our buildings down, but we stayed open because all the other communities around us shut down completely. We stayed open. We continued to offer services to people in any way that we could. We never shut down. We never closed. We did it whatever they told us to, and we did it. We're at 75% right now, and we're working. We have a number of clinics coming up. We're pushing the whole, get vaccinated. We're doing everything we can. I have had 18 years of experience in collective bargaining across the state through joint labor management, which is an arbitration mediation process with police. Change your working conditions, and you've got to respect employees, but change your working conditions that are subject to bargaining. And we're in bargaining right now, and I can't discuss the details of exactly what we're talking about, but that's the place. You don't unilaterally say everybody gets vaccinated or else, or otherwise you end up in court and you end up in front of the labor board. And right now, most of our employees are vaccinated, and we're working on the few that aren't. That doesn't count the schools. The schools are a different operation, have a different administrator, have a different collective bargaining group. But as far as the city goes, we're in good shape in terms of the amount of people that are vaccinated. I can't give out HIPAA, I can't give out HIPAA information, but that I can tell you.
The thing is, though, that we're one of the 20 cities that would been hardest hit by the vaccine, or that have been hardest hit by the coronavirus. And again, you say that we didn't shut down the city, or you didn't shut down City Hall, but that did not help. That did not help. People in City Hall had COVID. People in City Hall spread it to other people who had COVID. I do not respect your decision to keep City Hall open and forcing people to come to work in a setting when they could have, many of them could have just as well done their work.
So our employees, you have factual knowledge, right? As mayor, you can't just say things. You have to back up what you say, right? Did you show up with anything tonight that says city employees spread it to other people? Do you know that? You just made a statement.
That they
you want to be
didn't?
the mayor of the city of Leominster.
Do you know that they didn't? Did any employees in City Hall
Yes, because they have to
COVID?
Disclose where they got it.
Exactly.
And if somebody else got it, they have to disclose where they got it.
Exactly.
There's nothing.
It's called
you
contact
don't have
tracing.
anything. You made a statement. You don't have anything to back it up, right? You don't have anything to back it up. First of all, we took steps.
First-hand knowledge.
We took
First-hand
steps.
knowledge
Some people
counts.
We sent home. Are you aware that we sent some people home to work from home? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you realize that at the fire departments we separated everybody and built other staging areas because they had to go to calls?
Every municipality did that. That was standard operating procedure.
Are you aware that at City Hall we spread everybody out because people still needed to do business? People still needed to call City Hall and say, what do I do? I can't pay my electric bill. I can't pay my gas bill. I'm out of work. They won't let me collect unemployment because I didn't have some forms.
City services
Guess
are
what?
indeed needed.
We were there,
Other
right there. And if somebody needed a permit to do work or a business needed to expand while they were closed, guess who was there? Us. We were there. But you showed up tonight with no factual information.
That's not true.
No, well, you'd have a piece of paper that said this is where it came from. You took it on one. All right, how many people told you that they gave it to other people?
I know, I've heard from several city employees that there were people with COVID that worked for the city. Do you deny it?
We had people that everybody had people that had COVID. Of course they had COVID. I don't know if they brought it in from outside or whatever. What I'm saying is,
but having them come together,
I didn't make the statement. You said. She said that employees gave it to other people.
Would you mandate?
I wouldn't mandate it because almost everybody already has it.
Right, looking forward, what measures, not looking backwards, but looking forward, as mayor, depending on how these numbers go, what are you open to in terms of further COVID-related guidelines and mandates in the city?
I would be following the state recommendations. I would be following the guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I personally, when I'm in a crowded place indoors, and it's up to me what is considered crowded, my household, we mask when we're in indoor situations. And depending on people's setting inside, then masking is important, is still necessary inside. Yeah, just as within our schools.
My philosophy has been educate, educate, educate. If there are people who are afraid, and I've heard people say, I don't, it's my kind of my religious belief. I have an issue with getting needles. There are all these things. I educate, and that's what we've been all about, is educating people so they can make the best choice for themselves as they can. Now, I can't go to everybody in the city and say everybody in the city has to be vaccinated. Everyone in the city has to wear a mask. I think we're beyond that. I mean, this is almost 2 years now, and people are getting pretty tired, right? They want to get back to a normal life. They were told, shut the government and everything down. Everybody go home from work, let's shut this thing down for 2 weeks, and we're going to be better. Then we told everybody, wear a mask. Then we told everybody, get 2 shots and you're going to be fine. That hasn't happened. Now we're going to need a booster shot. So we have a clinic set up at the end of the month.
It's a learning process, right? This is nobody has experienced, right? And epidemiologists, scientists are learning as we go. So just because we're getting more information, we need some people may need the booster shot. It doesn't discount the fact that nobody was wrong leading up to it.
As far as your authority.
This is the open session, right? Just give me 1 second. Why is it that you will not listen to the scientists, the experts behind our pension fund and our bond rating and how much we have in it, but you're more than willing to listen to the people in the science behind this who are the experts? I'd like to know that.
Why? I'd like to know. Why did we not have a regional vaccination center in like Hayward Hospital in Gardner did? We could have had one. I know you got one in the mall in May, but we could have had a regional one at the Kmart Plaza in February.
No,
why did we not get that?
That is not true. Where did you get that information? I was 100% involved in that process. Where did you get everything you've said tonight is hearsay. When you're mayor, let me just understand something, right? When you're mayor, you can't go based on hearsay. You have to make sure you have all your facts lined up. If we went into Kmart, it would cost us. It was going to be $15,000 a month for rent. We were at the mall for nothing. We processed over 6,000 to 7,000 people.
It was 3 months later.
It had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with Kmart.
Why did Gardner have a regional vaccination center in February? Why did we not? We're bigger.
They didn't give us one.
Partnering with Fitchburg.
Why
did we not get one?
You're going to show us all a document the next couple of days saying that we could have been a regional site, right? Okay.
It was in the paper, sir.
So just to...
We don't have to argue about those things.
Okay. So bottom line, the question
she's
was...
telling me, I'm 100%, I'm in every meeting. I'm 100% involved.
So it sounds like
she's telling me it didn't
forward,
happen.
as chief executive of the city, you would not be open to mandating city employees, public employees get vaccinated or show weekly COVID negative tests?
Well, we may have to go to weekly. We may have to go to once we can get people tested. The problem now is we can't. There are so many people that want to get tested. Once we go to that, it will probably go to you have to get tested every so often because you can still get COVID when you've had the vaccines.
And also and I agree with the testing. I agree with you on the testing. And some communities have testing available for their municipal employees, so that their municipal employees can get tested in their town or city hall on a weekly basis for free.
Okay, next topic.
Yes.
Many of Leominster's neighboring communities have embraced recreational marijuana dispensaries as a new revenue stream. Leominster has taken the opposite approach and has implemented some of the most restrictive zoning regulations in the state, so stringent that it's really impossible to get a recreational dispensary in the city. Now that we've had a couple years under our belt and looking at neighboring communities, do you think Leominster should revisit this zoning, or did they get it right? Mayor?
I don't know. We have 4 in the process. I'm not sure what you mean. We're not going to just open up the whole city. We're not going to open up the whole city and say, hey, everybody, come on in and just build marijuana, because at some point there's going to be consolidation in the business going to buy people out, and those buildings are going to be sitting there empty.
You mean retail,
what
right?
we look for...
You mean retail?
Retail, yeah. I was talking retail. Dispensers.
I can't control, right? There's a place right off of Mohawk Drive. It hasn't opened yet, right? There's 3 or 4 others that are pending. I'm not responsible for how fast they can move, but they've got, there was one that there was just a bid out on the end of Orchard Hill Park. That's a retail site. That's up at Orchard Hill Park. I can't control how fast these people move. One person we simply haven't heard from. So I don't think we've made restrictive zoning. We just made it so that it's in basically industrial zones where there's mixed use to begin with, right? I mean, I don't think the council or anybody else has restricted it. We just haven't opened up the whole city and said, hey, just come in and put a marijuana facility anywhere you want. No, we haven't done that.
Ms. Freeman?
Yeah, it's a decision for the city council, right? It's not a decision for the mayor. It's a decision for the city council. And like you said, Leominster has not made it easy for this new next generation type of retail to come in. You know, and I understand the City Council's conservative approach on this. Again, this is a brave new world, and some of us, you know, it's a new highly regulated industry. You know, and that said, it is a growing industry, and there's some very good paying jobs in it as well. Like I said, it's highly regulated, more so than you know, package stores and stuff. But so if the City Council does want to explore it more, you know, as mayor, I would be willing to assist with such conversations.
Right now, Kevin, we have businesses that are trying to come into town faster than we can supply them with space. We're waiting for certain leases to come up so that we can move these new people into that space. Right now, it might be used for warehousing or low-end manufacturing. And what's coming to us, is life sciences, high-tech, robotics, automation. That's moving into this area. If you look at the North Central Chamber, one plan, one voice, one region, clearly, and she references it many times, but she forgot a couple key points where they mention how Leominster and Devens are bringing all these high-end jobs. I wouldn't want to displace a company that's going to come in here with 200 and 300 jobs that are going to be here for a long time with a marijuana facility when there are so many I don't understand how they're all surviving. They're in Air, they're in every town. So, I mean, they have more marijuana retail spaces than CVS has drugstores. I mean, they really do. I mean, this is I don't want to be the capital. I don't want to be the marijuana retail capital of the world. And so, but I think we've been very conservative.
So you don't want to displace, and you don't want to displace. You know, I get you wanting to bringing advanced manufacturing and bring higher paying jobs into the city, and you don't want to, you know, have it to go to a retail marijuana shop when you could bring in some higher paying jobs.
Correct.
So why did that happen then with so many of the big box stores that were built on industrial? What could be industrial? We don't have many spots left for advanced manufacturing.
We have lots of spots. We have plenty of land in the area, and that's what we're trying to preserve. I don't know where you got your information, but we have land that we're trying to hold on to. That's near the rail. It's conducive. We're right near Devens. We're right near Boston. Life sciences are growing. I mean, where do you think the people that work at Bristol's Myers Squibb, where do you think they live? Right here in Leominster, right? This is a growing. We're going to a grand opening tomorrow on Nashua Street. This business used to, do kind of low-end manufacturing. Now it's all high-end. These are 20, 30 people that are in this building. All have major degrees. All are specialists in what they do. That's, I got no issue with marijuana. It's legal. You can go. But do we have to have 500 of these places around this? I don't think so. And we've given out 4 permits. I'm waiting. Some of them haven't even responded back, but they have a permit. So now we're going to go back to them and say, look, are you going to use the permit or not? I don't know. I don't really listen. If another community wants to be the capital of the world and the capital of New England and going to take that revenue, we're looking for sustainability. We're looking for companies going to come here. Already, one of our facilities got bought out by somebody, and they haven't opened. They have a brand new retail facility at the end of Mohawk Drive, Lock Drive, it's called. A brand new facility. They never opened. They had to spend $1 million or $2 million. I wasn't part of that, stopping them from opening. They just got bought out by another company. So that building sits there, and I'm not sure what will happen to it.
All set on this?
Yes.
If you go down to city council chambers, you'll see group pictures of all the city councilors throughout the years in Leominster. And one of the things you notice is how little difference there is in all of those pictures. Even though the population of Leominster is diverse in demographics, this city has never elected a person of color or a Latino to any elective office in the city's history. Is this concerning to you? If so, why do you believe that we have not seen more members of minority communities running for local office? And what can be done to encourage civic engagement, resulting in representation that more accurately reflects the populace? That's very much.
Thanks for pointing that out, Kevin. Yes, this is something that I speak about regularly because we're not represented. We do not represent our city in terms of our racial and ethnic makeup. We don't represent it. We're not represented in terms of age or ability. Or there's other ways. It's mostly, like you said, it's mostly white, older, and mostly men. And in terms of, I think we've not had people running for elected office in Leominster for years. In fact, 2 years ago, the 2019 municipal elections, not a single seat was, if I remember correctly, not a single seat was contested, not school committee, not city council, and not the mayor's race. And you got to ask yourself why. And also, you know, as I recall, the percentage of people even voting has been going downhill many years. And you got to ask yourself why. And I don't have the answers to that, but I think that, you know, if I had to guess, I would say it's because we're just kind of stuck, that people don't think that they can make any change, that they can have an influence, and that they're welcome. It's hard to find out how to run. You go to the city's website, if you're trying to, all it says is call the city clerk. It doesn't give any information about what it takes, the timeline. It's a very intimidating process, I have to say. And so I think that's why we don't have like hardly any people running, and certainly, you know, people that maybe have been you know, not invited to the conversation. We even look at our boards and our commissions. I can think of one person of color on one of our boards and commissions. I may have that wrong, but no, we will be a stronger community when we have more representation, and more people coming with different experiences, different ages, different abilities, different races and backgrounds.
Mr. Mazzarella.
Well, I think a lot of it is anybody listening? Is my voice being heard? And I would say the reason people don't run for city council or for mayor or what these other school committee jobs might be that people feel I am being listened to, I am being represented, and they're doing a good job. I remember being at city council meetings not that long ago when some of our supporters were councilors, where these meetings used to go on till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. We had a recess, come back the next day. Nothing got done. I am always out in the community, always, always. I'm the vice president of the Haitian American Club. The Haitian American Club. I'm always interacting with members of the community, not just from Haiti, but other members from Ghana, the Spanish American Center, everybody. I'm out in the community all the time, and I'm always trying to recruit. I'm in churches, I'm at their homes, I'm everywhere. I'm like, why don't you run for city council? Why don't you run for this? Why don't you run for mayor? You know, run for something, school committee. It's been difficult, but I think mostly, and you know, you're a city councilor. When there's a big issue, the landfill, closing the landfill, big issues, people rise to the occasion because they don't feel that people are listening to them. I'm engaging with people of all ethnic descents in the community. I send letters, emails to different groups saying, hey, it's that time of year, April. Do you have anybody that's interested in being on a board or commission? One of the things that we've done is, Leominster, as you may remember, was under a consent order for police and fire. We didn't have enough representation in our community. So what did I do? I went out into the community and recruited. I went to churches, I went to their homes, I went everywhere and said, come on, take the test, take the test. We had billboards that said, take the test. And right now, if you look at our police department, fire department, our city government, the people that work there, you'll see that it's well represented here in our community. I mean, what I can do is, as mayor, is listen to people. People can call me on my cell, they can email me, they can stop me at City Hall, and they can tell me what their issues are, and I take care of them. So I hear and then take action.
So when you've recently appointed several people to Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Historical Commission, Office of Emergency Management, just in the past several months, did anybody you appoint, would they identify as a Black, Indigenous, or person of color? Would they identify as LGBTQ plus? Would they identify as being someone with a disability?
We put it out all over social media, with press releases.
Did you appoint any?
Everywhere.
Did you appoint any?
They didn't apply. If they didn't apply, then we didn't. Right?
So when someone does apply to the commission that might, represent any of those populations, they would be considered?
Well, everybody's considered. Everybody is considered. Everybody. Okay. And it doesn't always line up where, sometimes people don't have good social skills and you're dealing with the public and maybe that doesn't line up. But I'm telling you what I did. Okay, for 28 years, I've been out into the community talking to everybody, listening to what they say. He asked the question, well, why doesn't that look more like the community? Well, at one time it was predominantly, French, Irish, and Italian, and that's what it looked like. But I say to you now that in 28 years, I think that myself and the city council have done a good job of listening to whatever anybody's concerns are. We take action, and they're happy with our performance.
Is there
You're not happy with it, but I think a lot of people are.
Is there a handout, or is there some place you can direct folks so that if they do want to apply for a board or commission or run for office in 2 years, is there a how-to? Is there a, any kind of guide that you can
Yeah, I
direct
tell
people
them, come
to?
on and sit in my office and we'll talk about what
So
it
there's
is
nothing
that
in
you might be
write-
interested in.
There's nothing that people can read about, nothing people, it's a little intimidating
It's
to go.
online, it's the charter, and it tells you what your job is, your powers and duties, how do you get elected, what's your term, what happens if something happens
So
and
the
you
charter.
can't serve.
So they should go to the charter?
You go online and there's the whole charter.
So go to the charter,
That's
okay.
what tells you the whole, everything about, sometimes people apply for a job, don't know what it is. Everything is in the city's charter, it's all on the
Okay,
website.
so people should go to the charter.
Well, if they're going to call, there has to be some factual place where you find out what do you have to. You've got to be 18 years old. You have to be this. That's the only place.
know.
Where are you going to get that information? You get it from the city charter.
Right. I'm
It
just wondering if
describes
there's something a little more user
every-
friendly is all. That's what I was just wondering
All right.
about.
Let me just ask you, how many people in your organization, how diverse was your organization? Because I looked, and you know what? It wasn't very diverse for a business or for a nonprofit. That
For
was
a 7-person staff?
Yes.
Yeah?
$1 million,
Three of
taking
the-
money from people, 89% coming from whoever you took it from, and no diversity.
Okay, so now did you look at the photos? Did you look at the names, or did you ask people how they identify? I don't think you did, because I think I would have heard back from my former colleagues and friends. Because no, there are people of color on the organization that I used to work for. Absolutely. In our board, did you look at our board of directors? We actually have a policy. We have in our bylaws and for the MPHA's policy council, it says at least 50% of people on the board and on the policy council need to self-identify as people of color, and that holds true.
Okay. The question was, why aren't people running for office?
Right.
Why doesn't the city council, the school committee? Because they're not running. The answer is, what's your opinion? My answer is because they feel represented. They feel they have a voice in the community.
Have you asked them why they're not
People
running?
that come here, yes. And when they
Why?
come here, they say they love being in the city. They love the fact that it is so diverse. One of the valedictorians got up at the two graduations ago and said, I'm proud to be from this city, and I'm proud to come from a high school in a city that's so diverse, where we're all accepted and welcomed, where we can get along with each other. No matter how many, there's 30, 40, 50 different ethnic groups here in the city.
I so wish that more kids, more students and young adults could say that, because what I hear, some of the folks I've talked to, one woman that I talked to not far down the street from me, she said that her main concern, and this is a recent, new citizen from West Africa, and she said her biggest concern in the city was her personal safety. And I heard that coming from a parent who said that his teenage children are not comfortable. They're folks from West Africa as well. They're not comfortable walking around our city, and that breaks my heart, because we can do better than that. And I know you want to do better in that regard as well. But not everybody feels the same way.
You're right. And again, if that person doesn't feel it, they are more than, I don't know who it is, but you can have them call me, right? We have school resource officers. We have a very diverse police department, extremely. And that's administration as well. People that are sergeants and lieutenants and all the way up. Well, it's very diverse. But somebody's got to say something. The school department now, I didn't hear you going to the school committee meetings at all saying, hey, listen, at the school committee meeting saying, you know what, our school system doesn't look like the very people that it represents, right? It's a very different thing. That's been one of my things, if you've ever heard.
Yeah.
I have pounded this saying,
and I tried to get on the school committee, and I think you remember how that ended.
Our city council, you gave up. You didn't run again. You ran for office. When you didn't run, you left. You took your ball and you went home and you left, and you didn't run again.
After
Who stopped you
you
from
asked
running?
the city council to ask the state legislature to make an exemption for a direct report to you.
Could you have run?
Of course I could have, and it wouldn't have made any difference. No, I did not. It was too frustrating to deal with what you led.
So you had an agenda, and you wanted to help the school system and the kids.
And I learned along the way what I was facing.
But you decided not to run. Instead of fighting for kids, which I've been doing for 28 years, never backing down from things that were important to kids' education and student achievement. Never once backing down, and sometimes having a debate the entire school committee. Or when with only 5 people in Leominster last year, 5 people in September only had COVID. That was it, everywhere. I had to fight to try to keep the schools open. I was the only one saying, wait a minute, there are only 5 cases. 5 cases. I've had to have that, but you gave up. That's not what this job is about, because things get tough and they get frustrating.
You made it very clear you did not want me or anybody else on the school committee than someone you handpicked.
I never made that clear. You have the right to run for school committee, but you didn't. You left. And this job is about fighting for things.
When
things get tough, right? When they get frustrating and really tough, you got to hang in there and see it through, because you're passionate. You believe it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do. So you hang in there, you run for office, and you make change in any way you did. You didn't. You left.
No.
You didn't run. You left.
No.
And you left it. Let
her respond.
Sure.
No, you're right.
She brought it up.
I did, and I brought it up because of what happened in that situation when there was not enough people ran for office to fill the school committee seats. I was asked by an elected official to run a write-in campaign. I thought about it, so I did. My husband and I, we don't have children, but we know how important education is for overall health outcomes. We know how important it is for economic stability. I was so ready to serve. I ran a write-in campaign, and one of your direct reports ran against me in a write-in campaign, and then asked the city council, because she would have had to leave her position in order to be sworn in as a city councilor or as a school committee member, asked the city council to ask the state legislature to make an exception for her.
Adrian, she was on the ballot.
She was not on the ballot.
It
was a write-in campaign. It was a write-in campaign.
Mayor Mazzarella, you have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Speak to the voters.
Sure. You mean it's up already? We didn't even touch on the real issues.
I know, this is just getting
You want to go on? We'll go on.
No. Managing the city in today's world, especially one of our size, is more complex than it's ever been. Knowledge and experience is absolutely critical to success. There are many moving parts in the job of mayor. You have to know each part and how they fit together and keep things running smoothly and moving forward. Community development, economic development, compliance, labor law, union negotiations, communications, crisis management, and especially municipal finance. A few rookie moves in any of these areas, and you can set the city back decades and cost the citizens and the taxpayers millions of dollars. If you apply for a town manager job in a community of 5,000 people, these are the requirements that you need, and not a minimum less than that. Look at any profitable company in corporate world looking to hire a CEO. They don't just say, hey, look, they seem nice, let's give them a whack at it. No, they look for the candidate with the most knowledge, experience, and the most successful track record, right? When you're looking for a surgeon, you bet you want the one that's going to do the best job and the one that's most qualified. To be as successful as our city, and to keep it moving forward, you need a 24/7, all in, all the time kind of leader that you can access. I'm the only mayor in the state that for 28 years has given out my cell number, 978-835-6643. That's what it takes. After all these years, you know who I am and what I'm all about. I was born and raised here. I've spent my entire career serving the city, first as a police officer, then as your mayor. Leominster is my passion and my calling. You know how hard I work for all of you and how I do absolutely anything to help anybody. After 28 years, any one of you can reach out to me at any time, day or night, phone calls, emails, text, Facebook, all other social medias. Have questions, need help. My team and I are always ready to assist you. We are diligently and passionately working for you to make Leominster the safe and successful city that it is. And it only gets better from here. My team, and I just want to close out and say that conversation I had today, a guy called me and said, is this election important? It is, because 70% of all the money that my opponent has raised is coming from out of state. They want to take their ideology and their political agenda and move it to Leominster. They have no connections to Leominster at all. 70% of that money is coming from outside. You have to ask yourself, why? Why? It's to further their political...
How many minutes?
I don't bring politics to the city and my personal politics. Thank you. Remember, the world is run by those who show up. Please show up.
Ms. Freeman.
Thank you, Kevin. And thank you, FATV and LATV, for hosting this important debate. To be sure, there is lots going on in Leominster, but we cannot mistake busyness for progress. While our property taxes increased steadily these past decades, key indicators of well-being have stagnated, and some of them have gotten worse. I believe that progress for Leominster means meeting or exceeding state averages for things that matter most in people's lives, because we don't have to be a gateway city forever. During my opponent's tenure, the percentage of people living in poverty in Leominster increased from 9.5% to 12.5%, and more of our neighbors are struggling to pay for quality housing. So let's focus on getting our average weekly wage above that of Fitchburg, and then let's focus on getting it to close to the state average. To get more jobs with higher wages in this day and age, we need a higher percentage of people in Leominster earning college degrees or trade certificates. And to do that, we must invest more in education, more than the bare minimum that the state requires. 90% of Massachusetts school districts invest more than the bare minimum, and we can too. We're blessed with a wonderfully diverse and beautiful city that's got great potential. But residents are telling me that our city is stuck in the past and that their questions and their concerns aren't being heard. After 28 years with the same mayor, our city's ability to adapt to the residents' priorities has stalled out. But we can be adaptable, we can be responsive, and we can be more transparent. It's only going to take new leadership. I've gained skills and experience our city needs during my career as a program director and coalition builder for organizations across the state and the country. I know how to bring people together around challenging issues, to clarify values, to identify shared goals, and to make plans for achieving them. Our city needs a vision for the future, and we all deserve to be heard and well-informed along the way. As your mayor, I will make sure that you know how to be involved and where to get answers about how your tax dollars are being spent. I invite you to learn more about me at my website, freemanformayor.com, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Democracy in action. Andrea Freeman, Mayor Dean Mazzarella, thank you for showing up, facing each other, and speaking to the voters.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you,
sir.
Andrea.
Thank you, Mayor.
I got a little knuckle crack.